Are we live?
Yes.
All right, very exciting.
So we'll just start with the trailer of the documentary.
One of our activists just got killed. Fucking truck hit her. Jesus Christ.
Animal rights activist Regan Russell was killed while standing in front of the entrance to Fearman Slaughterhouse.
Halton police are conducting an investigation.
He saw her standing there. He definitely did.
Like, he didn't stop when he hit her. He dragged her.
The death has dramatically heated the animosity between Ontario's livestock industry and animal activists.
All the counter protesters are here.
People are showing up and turning this into a culture war.
This is unheard of, that a 65-year-old peaceful activist would be killed at a protest.
They just want us out of the way. The police want us out of the way. The politicians want us out of the way.
The government says it's trying to protect farmers and animals from trespassers.
The industry here is very powerful, and it will stop at nothing to make sure that people can't see the horrific conditions that animals are enduring.
Movements have martyrs. That's the way it goes. Her death has elevated our movement to the next phase.
Regan was a force of nature. She was unstoppable. She was steadfast in her passion for animals. And I know a part of her lives in me and all of you for such an incredible woman.
Regan, you didn't want this, but you're going down in history. This is a moment that is going to reverberate across the whole world, and it has.
Thank you for joining us today for this live and interactive Q&A. Following the release of We Are Their Voice, the Regan Russell story by Jordan Ehrlich of CaveLight Film. I'm Varun. I'm the digital media coordinator for Animal Save Movement, a Justice for Regan Russell campaigner, and your host tonight. While I briefly speak about Regan and introduce our special guests, Jordan Ehrlich, Jane Valez-Mitchell, Mark Powell, Joshua Powell, and Jenny McQueen, please start posting your questions below. You may ask questions directly to an individual speaker or the panel as a whole. Regan was a decades-long pioneer in animal rights activism and was violently killed by the animal agriculture industry on June 19, when she was struck by a pig transport truck entering Sofina Foods' Fearman Slaughterhouse in Burlington, Ontario. She was present that day to bear witness and show kindness to some of the 10,000 frightened pigs who were brutally murdered that day, and also to protest against Ag Gag Bill 156, a dangerous piece of legislation that criminalizes whistleblowers and allows the use of force against peaceful activists. What becomes more and more evident is that animal ag and our lawmakers will stop at nothing to stop us from exposing the bloodshed and torture that billions of sentient non-human animals face every single day. Jordan's documentary has had a huge impact already. We are edging close to 5 million views since Friday, and we have seen people go vegan from watching it, as well as celebrity reaction from Game of Thrones star Natalie Emmanuel, actress Deborah Messing, and Kermit from the Pussycat Dolls. It has brought Regan's story to a whole new level, and we are so grateful to Jordan for making that happen. I would like to now introduce our amazing guest panel who are eagerly awaiting your questions. First, we have Jordan Ehrlich. Jordan has been working in documentary film and TV for over 20 years. He wrote and produced numerous TV and documentary projects for Travel Channel, A&E Network, Discovery Channel, and Animal Planet, as well as multiple independent documentaries. He started his own production company, CaveLight Films, in 2010 to focus on social issue-driven projects. Over the past year, CaveLight Films have primarily focused on the negative impact of animal agriculture. Their past two films about animal ag have been viewed around 30 times. Their latest film is We Are Their Voice, the Regan Russell story. Next, we have Jane Valez-Mitchell. Jane is a former CNN anchor and founder of Jane Unchained News, a nonprofit social media news network reporting on animal rights, veganism, health, and climate change. Jane has won 4 Genesis Awards from the Humane Society of the United States for her reporting on animal issues. Veg News named Jane Valez-Mitchell Media Maven of the Year in 2010. In 2013, Mercy for Animals awarded her their Compassionate Leadership Award. In 2014, she was honored for fighting animal abuse by the Animal Legal Defense Fund. In 2015, she received PETA's Nancy Alexander Award. Valez-Mitchell is the author of 4 books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers. She's active in the LGBTQIA+ community and lives in Los Angeles with 3 rescue dogs and cats. Mark Powell is Regan's longtime husband and soulmate. They were together for the last 20 years and have known each other for most of their lives. Even supportive of Regan's activism, Mark has dedicated himself to carrying her torch forward as he seeks answers in the tragedy of her death and hopes to do justice to her name. Josh Powell is Regan's stepson who lived with Regan for 5 years. Josh is very concerned about the extreme implications of Ag-Gag Bill 156 and worries Regan's tragic death may be manipulated to justify or validate its existence. He joins and supports his father Mark in his effort to reveal the devastating truth of June 19th. Jenny McQueen is a longtime animal rights activist, originally from the UK, and is now residing in Toronto. She helps rescue animals, co-founded Animal Rights Toronto, is a member of Direct Action Everywhere, and volunteers with PETA, Animal Save Movement, and other animal rights organizations. She's currently campaigning against a recently introduced Ag-Gag bill in memory of late animal rights activist Regan Russell. Now, I would like to welcome you all. Thank you so much for taking your time out for this panel. It's a pleasure and honor to have you all here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would request the guests, if you're not speaking, to turn off your mic. Thank you. And now we will go over the questions. So the first question is from Nicola May Harris. She's asking, why do you think this documentary has gone so viral? Who would like to respond to that? Jordan?
I mean, I'll just say quickly, I mean, that was the goal, was to get as many people to see this as possible. So I wanted to make a documentary that was, you know, that had the urgency and the issues front and center, not only about Regan, but the animals, about the bill. I mean, this story has so many levels. So I told it with as much heart and emotion as I could. And I told it in a way that if it was me on the other end of the computer watching this, what would I want to see if I didn't know about what this, you know, this amazing human being in this really intense situation? I wanted to get right to it. And that's what we did. We tried to add as much information as possible, but also tell it in such a way that really got to the heart of the story. And you know, it was a great platform too. We have, you know, Now This. We've done 2 other documentaries on Now This, and they knew that the last 2 did so well that they wanted to feature this one as well, and sort of the rest is history. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jordan. We have next question from Leo Wolf. Leo commented, "Hi, thank you for all you do. What would you say was Regan's distinctive values? We have been able to see she was energetic, empathetic, and kind. But what would you say made her an amazing person and activist? Hugs from Valparaiso Animal Save, Chile." So
maybe I could take that one.
Sure, Jenny.
She was fearless. In the photographs that you mainly see of her, she had a beautiful smile. She was poised. She was elegant. But in a couple of videos and actions I captured with her, she was brave. She was fearless. She stood up for everyone. She stood up for animals. She stood up for the oppressed, humans. So I think that just shone out in the film. And yeah, her personality and her style were just perfect in my eyes.
Thanks, Jenny. Mark?
Well, of course, Jenny's correct. She was fearless. But I've always thought that she was fearless because she was standing on the side of right. It was a hard argument for anyone to get into with Regan about injustice, period. Whether she was standing up for human rights or animal rights. Bring it on. And she'll discuss why she was standing there for any of it. And that's the fearlessness. She was going to stand up and she was going in because she felt that she was doing the right thing. And if she's doing the right thing and you're in a country that allows you to stand up and speak, where's the harm? Why can't you be fearless? You should be protected by the law. You should be in fear of no harm to you, just trying to speak of what you see and get it out there. So why can't I just walk through this gate? Everybody else walks through. Oh, I see. I'm not an employee. Well, then tell me that and let's have a chat. I'll tell you why I'm here. Always opening the dialogue by taking that step forward. Yeah, Jenny's right. She was fearless. It was her mission.
Thanks, Mark. Jane, you wrote a song for her. And we use it all the time in our marches and on demo. It's so powerful, so moving. What would you say about that song and why you made that song?
I was talking to Anita Krines, who is one of my heroes. I look up to her enormously, and she was so, it brings, tears to my eyes. She was so crushed by this. She wanted to do every single thing she could to make the world know about this injustice. And she said, I just wish somebody in Hollywood would write a song. And she mentioned a couple of very famous people. And I thought, well, good luck with that. And then as soon as I hung up, I thought, I'll write a song. I've written a few and I just came out. It was like, where'd you go, Regan Russell? You were here just a moment ago. Oh my God, she got hit by the truck. And it just poured out. And then Lisa Barca, who's a musician in Phoenix, who happens to be a PhD like Anita, I called her, and she and her husband and their group did an incredible job putting it together and added amazing things. Mine was just literally like tapping on a piano. They made it come together. And it was just my way of being in the United States, not being in Canada, admiring Regan so much. As everybody said, you can see her elegance. You can see her grace under pressure, which is the definition of courage, in every frame of every video. And I happen to be her age. I really related to, oh my God, that could have been me. And I just want to take a moment to thank Jordan Ehrlich for doing an incredible job on this video, this mini doc, as well as now this. Having been in mainstream media, and I'll just move this light. Having been in mainstream media for 4 decades and knowing how they can twist things, I remember when he called me, I was like, wow, this is mainstream media. I wonder if they're going to do a fair job. And after talking to him, I thought, yeah, I have a good vibe about this person. And they did an incredibly fair job. They told the story that never gets told, which is the story of animal suffering and why people do this, instead of twisting it into some kind of, carnist agenda. So I applaud you, Jordan, and I applaud now this. Very rare, and I hope you inspire other journalists to tell the story as it is and not put their own prejudices regarding meat eating and where animals are in society, and not putting that onto the story. You told the story as it needs to be told, and that is so rare. And I'll just jump in really quick. Thank you so much. And the reason I went with Now This is because they let me do, they don't put their own stamp on it. They let me do what I think is right.
and they don't have any creative control at all. They put up exactly how I made it. And that's why I thought it was important to go that way, because I think they trust me to make sure I get the facts straight and to make it something that is interesting to a lot of people. And that's what happened. So, and thank you everybody else for, your contributions to the film, which has been amazing. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jordan and Jane. We have this next comment. I think, Josh, you would like to respond to this one. The comment is by Andrea Baker. They're asking, why wouldn't the police release the video? Is there some kind of privacy legislation preventing them from doing so? Josh, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, I just did. Yeah.
I believe there are some protections for people accused of things. The justification given to us by the police themselves was that it would potentially color the jurors to see that information or that video out in the public prior to going to trial. Now that there's no criminal trial, that there is no criminal charge, there is no jury, it's simply a traffic ticket. So the justification that it would color a juror's opinion is not relevant, nor really is the idea that it could have some implication against the case if the case is never going to go before that kind of before a criminal court. So I don't know if there's specific legislation protecting the traffic violations. It's really just their discretion. They're saying it's a matter before the court, so we can't release any information that we have, and that's their justification now. So that's now changed from the original justification of it could be a criminal case, and releasing it would potentially affect that. And that it speaks to the kind of shifting narrative we've received as the victim's family, which I think is highly suspect and something that is really questionable.
Thanks, Josh.
Right.
Yes, Mark.
I'm going to expand on that a little bit.
Yes, please.
Josh was correct. They put up this wall, and they said we can't show you any evidence. It's a matter before the court. We spoke about the evidence a little bit. They gave us what without reaching their line in the sand that they've created. And Josh was correct. It's under the Highway Traffic Act. This evidence should be on the street. This isn't a criminal case yet. So they're trying to hide behind the Highway Traffic Act. That's not going to work. So from what I understand, we're going to move ahead and approach the Attorney General of Ontario, come down on them, and release this evidence. We'll be making motions that way soon. But the way I see it, they don't want a criminal trial in their district again. Lenita had one 4 years ago, and it exposed the industry. They subpoenaed farmers, truckers, slaughterhouse employees, and anybody connected to the transport and manufacture of pigs. And they were held to the fire. And it was an embarrassment to the city of Burlington. So I see some political angles being played, where they're putting up a fence and they're trying to keep this as the low-hanging fruit that it is, careless driving under the Highway Traffic Act. So it just goes away. They don't want a trial of that magnitude in their city. And they do have some control over that just by not cooperating. We're going to show them that by not cooperating, we are not going to listen to that. We're going to take the fight to them, and we're not going to wait. They've told us we have to wait until they're finished with their trial, if there is one, in traffic court, driver. And when they're finished, whether he's convicted or not, then they will release the evidence to us and we can do with it as we wish. Our counsel can then use that evidence to push ahead a different avenue of litigation. Well, if we play their game, we have to wait. There isn't a courtroom available. COVID is running havoc over the court system. We won't have any space for highway traffic offenses in Ontario for a long while. They're only proceeding with criminal trials. And the longer we wait, the older Regan's parents get. Her father just turned 90 years old, as some of you are aware. And if we let them play their game and we have to wait, they could be gone before this is resolved. So my job for them and for Regan is to get this moving along at a pace that's acceptable. We can all accept the system has its delays, but this is unheard of. So our job is to push back. Oh, we're not going to wait for them to wrap this up in a little bow for themselves. So we are moving in another direction, let's say, to push back. We're not going to play their game.
Can I add one quick thing?
Yes.
I also feel that they are very afraid of the video coming out because it would spark a lot of news coverage where you actually see what happened. And I believe Regan Russell is a martyr, but that would make her a martyr to many more millions of people. And it would spark a whole conversation. And I'm sure Jordan can weigh in on that as somebody in the media. The news coverage would reactivate the news coverage all over again and expand it. So the conversation would be all across the media. And that's something I think the powers that be, the industry, government, which are aligned, really fear.
And we asked for the video. We approached the Halton Regional Police Service multiple times and wanted them to give comment in the film, and they refused. They did use the court potential proceedings as an excuse, and we said, if you have nothing to hide and the video vindicates the driver, why not show it? Why not talk about it? And they refused multiple times.
Thanks, Jordan. You also approached Halton Regional Police and Brussels Trucking Company. They didn't get back to you either?
We approached maybe 10 or 15 people from the various sides of the various stakeholders, the different ministries in the Ontario, sort of different departments in the Ontario ministries, Brussels Transport, Sofina Foods, a bunch of other trucker unions. We wanted them to have their say and say whatever they have to say. We were going to, they probably didn't believe us, but we weren't going to sort of edit them down or do any trick editing. We wanted them to say what they had to say, but they refused, and that says a lot.
Absolutely. So we have this next question, which might be a bit related in terms of ag bills. This is from Trevor. Trevor is asking, "Hi everyone," saying, "Hi everyone, thanks very much for your tireless work and dedication. I have a question that might be best for Jenny McQueen to discuss. What would your thoughts be on ag legislation such as Bill 156 in Ontario, Bill 27 in Alberta, and what are ways we can best work against them?"
Yeah, it's shocking that these ag bills are introduced, and it's extremely shocking when you hear the politicians talk about them in Parliament. They're basically fed untruths by the farming industry, even at the federal level. Just recently, we heard absolute lies and accusations repeated at the federal level in Canada about a farm occupation that myself and a few other activists had done in Quebec, we find horrifying conditions in these places, and to have government think that they can just shut that down, investigations by whistleblowers, that they can shut down people bearing witness to animals, is just horrifying. And I think it's important to know that there are animal rights lawyers now who, animal justice, for example, who will be taking up the case and who will be making a stand in 2021. And in the United States, a lot of these ag-gag laws have been struck down as being unconstitutional. So I think, yeah, 2021, watch this space, go support animal justice, share the information about the ag-gag bills, and watch what happens.
Sorry. Hi, Jenny. I would like to ask like a follow-up question. What has been your experience and at Fairman Slaughterhouse since Regan died?
It's not been good. We still bear witness. We are having to stand on a median at a busy intersection, which is, you know, we're all about safety. We're trying to keep our people safe, but at the same time, we've got fast traffic going past. And all we've ever wanted is 2 minutes to bear witness to the pigs coming into slaughter, or the cows, or the chickens, or the lambs. Is it really too much to ask? I'm really dumbfounded as to why government would decide to try and shut down the animal save movement.
Thanks, Jenny. Now I'll look for another question. It is by Ellen Andrea Dent. Ellen is saying, thank you so much for doing this. What has your feedback from the film has been like? Jordan?
Well, I think most people can read the comments. You know, I think we're edging towards 6 million views at this point. And on the various different platforms, you know, there's, you know, tens of thousands of likes and hearts and all that good stuff. Obviously, the vocal few who are leaving the, you know, 7,000 or 10,000 comments are typically the truck driver or farmers or the vegan or activists or animal rights people. So you just really have that back and forth. And obviously, people are sort of have their views and probably didn't sway them too much one way or the other. But there's thousands or tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in the middle who have, it seems to be eye-opening for them. You know, they didn't know what happens to these pigs. They didn't know that there was even an animal save movement. They didn't know about Regan. They didn't know about any of this. So, you know, who knows what kind of effect it'll have, but it's certainly in their psyche now, and that is the goal. So overall, the feedback has been great, and you know, some people are not pleased, and that's to be expected.
Thanks, Jordan. Next question is from Kayla, and Kayla is asking, were there any responses from government officials or Fairman's Pork Incorporated Slaughterhouse regarding Regan's death that stand out? What on earth could they possibly have had to say about this?
Well,
yes, please.
Comment on that. It was in mainstream media early that I think within hours that the slaughterhouse, Sophia Foods, put out a statement offering condolence to the family in this tragedy. Period. They aren't going to answer anything. They're not going to answer any differently because they know this is going to put them on shaky ground. They have to stay quiet because they're just going to get lawyers to speak back and forth to what happened. And so they haven't said anything more than that. It also says, what on earth could they possibly have had to say about this? Well, that in itself is the statement. What else could they have said? They couldn't expand all they can do. They're going to be on the defensive. Politicians, government officials, our local MPP, Sandy Shaw, she stood up in our House of Parliament in Ontario, the legislative, a day before they were able to, they were going to recess for the summer. And the NDP are not the leading party in Ontario now. The Conservative Party is, and they have all the power in the House. They gave her 45 seconds. If she was a member of the Conservative government, it would have been unlimited time. They gave her 45 seconds to say something about Regan, her personal friend. So she drafted a member's statement to enter Regan into the records really of her friend. That was the one time I know of in Ontario that a member of the government spoke about Regan. Our own mayor of our city of Hamilton has said nothing. Even to in the last week, when Justin's documentary has such strength to be seen like over 4 million times, close to 6, he said just a minute ago. Who's paying attention? Not our politicians. Why don't they recognize this person who was born and raised in their city and has now international attention for something she believed in? All you got to do is say a few words. So we've only heard from an NDP, although we did hear early, within days of her death, that the government of Portugal, a member of that country in their legislative assembly, asked for 2 minutes of silence to honor Regan, and they held 2 minutes of silence in the government of Portugal, that country, within days. Our government, crickets.
Perhaps I can add to that as well. The state did meet with the mayor of Burlington, and the city of Burlington is where Regan's killing happened. And she actually proclaimed World Vegan Day in honor of Regan Russell. So that was one positive that came out, and we do hope to contact other mayors around Canada, and perhaps people listening to this can contact their politicians too on days like World Vegan Day and have them proclaimed in their city. I think it's shocking. One other thing that Fearman's Pork, as I recall, just announced Regan's death as a pedestrian, unfortunately was killed. Nothing about her, nothing about what she did, nothing about what she stood up for. I find that shameful.
I can add to that, actually, to that specifically. In admitting that she was a pedestrian killed, they've admitted that the criminal act took place, just from their statement that way. And that's always kind of irked me, because she was a pedestrian, so it was certainly criminal. She was in a place she was supposed to be. That was a live crosswalk. But who has said something from the opposition has been the owner of the trucking company. And he's made a lot of insinuations against the animal rights activists without evidence, which have been consistently parroted by the media here. Whereas the animal rights activists have credible, substantial evidence with substance of the threats made against them, of drivers trying to hit or threatening to hit them with their cars, vehicles rather, and just the stuff going on at the intersection over a very long period of time, and yet none of that is really made of any import by the media. It's just taking the statement from the trucking company and kind of printing it everywhere. So yeah, there has been a reaction, just not. There has been more said, but just not by the slaughterhouse itself, but the trucking company itself.
I'd like to just jump in and point out, here in Los Angeles, we do, with Los Angeles Animal Save and Animal Alliance Network, vigils frequently outside Farmer John's a couple of times a week. and the police completely cooperate and give talks to it's the largest, I believe, of all the save vigils, sometimes hundreds of people. And the police are wonderful. They talk to everybody. They set out the rules. They keep a police car there. They say time's up, back off. They work completely in collaboration with Ellen Andrea Dent and Amy Jean Davis and the other leaders of those vigils. And in fact, at least one of the officers has gone vegan. So it doesn't have to be this confrontational experience.
Thanks, Jane. I completely agree. In fact, the day Regan was killed, after she was killed, when activists arrived, we were at the entrance to the slaughterhouse, and we were begging the employees to talk to the union and ask them to release a couple of pigs in Regan's memory. So the people who were in like higher positions, they were preventing employees from talking to activists. They were telling them to take a different route to exit the slaughterhouse. So this, and the fact that they made a statement saying that we are deeply sorry, our condolence to the family, and I think they also talked something about their employees being traumatized, even though they prevented their employees from even knowing what was going on. So Fearman Slaughterhouse is notorious for doing that sort of stuff for years.
Right.
Yes, Mark.
Expand on that a little bit about how you were asking for them to at least give up a couple of the animals. They did the same thing when they had a truck rollover 4 years ago. Activists were asking, please let us take a couple of pigs into our care, injured or otherwise, particularly the injured. If we could, they would have gone to sanctuaries. Sanctuaries were prepared to handle them. They refused. Of course, they were not going to give up their property. But I wanted to hit on that day 4 years ago in Regan's memory to help people understand who he was. We had a call about the truck rollover early in the morning, so we drove the 20 minutes from our house quickly. Regan was driving, so we got there very quickly. And as we parked the car and ran across the street to the scene, there were police. The truck was rolled over, people everywhere, police tape. Police were there, and they were keeping people back. We both ran across the street. I stopped at the police tape, and I turned, and where's Regan? Missing. She was right with me. When I looked ahead, she'd gone beyond the tape, under the tape, around the officers, and she was in that truck taking pictures to document what needed to be done.
Wow.
That's her.
And I would like to add to that.
Yes.
That if you look at Regan's profile, you can still see some of those pictures that she took that day of pigs in truck. They're still there. And I believe Josh and Mark, I think that was her first vigil at Fearman's.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That might have been because we heard of the rollover and we raced out. And then we went back that evening for a candlelight vigil, and we've seen a couple of pictures from that. But my point was she was fearless. I'm a big guy. I can handle myself. I should have broke the police line and knocked the police over if I had to get the documentation. I stopped at the line. She didn't. She went beyond, and she's always gone beyond because she felt it was necessary. Damn the consequences. Lock me up if you have to. I'm going to get the evidence out there.
Absolutely. She was fearless indeed. So we have this next question from Peter McQueen. How does Regan's family feel about some of the more difficult, shocking scenes in the documentary?
I mean, it's something you don't want to see, obviously. But we had to see it. I think she would have wanted us to. You have to understand exactly what happened or exactly how it ended up and how she ended up to even understand remotely what happened that day, because they have actually withheld, going back to a previous question, withholding the tape has prevented any of us from having any kind of clear, definitive answer as to what exactly occurred. And the police specifically said it was the driver's statement corroborated by the video. So if his statement's corroborated by the video, then why can't we watch it so that we can understand what happened? And it was rough to view. Got it access to it quite quickly, and to our at our discretion, it was withheld because we didn't really know how we felt about it. And it was actually a really long debate between my dad and I whether that would actually be something we allowed people to use with our blessing, I guess, because it was already ostensibly it's already out there, right? So yeah, it's still rough to see. Say it doesn't really give us any solace. It just at least showed us, that it wasn't how it was being presented by the media and how it was ultimately kind of explained to us by the police. It doesn't really pan. It doesn't. The two stories, the video that we have available to us, and that story, they don't connect very well. We wouldn't be able to know that unless we had seen that video. So we're glad to have other people witness and understand what happened to her.
As Josh said, a difficult decision. We've had lots of those recently. And how do we feel about the shocking themes? Of course, they're shocking. I want everybody to see it. And I've had some friends say, "Well, I can't watch." Well, I get it if it's going to upset you. But sometimes, gotta look. And for it to get out in public, gotta look at it. Get the story straight. And when I approached the police about seeing that video, I'm calling it a video because it's imaging. But I wanted to see the evidence. And they said, "Are you sure you can watch that?" I said, "I see it every night in my head. So show me the real deal. Maybe I can put what I'm seeing to rest." Or maybe it lines right up. As Josh alluded to, things don't line up. When the police department speaks about their evidence to us, they can only speak somewhat generalities. They can't get into the specifics of what's in the video, but at the same time, some things have come out, and it's not parallel to Laurie Cronin's video directly after Regan was hit. We all there, you just have to look. And it was Sean Monson's piece that I'd seen that clip many times. We had it early, as Josh said, but Sean said something and it clicked. And I called Josh at 1 a.m. and I said, "I know you're up. Let's both get this on the screen. I'll walk you through what I think." He said, "Oh my God, Dad, you're right. How could it be anything else? It's all right there." And the police are a different story. And was documentary. Jordan.
Yeah,
in Jordan's piece, Joshua said, they came to our house and said it's careless driving because the driver said he did not see her, and it's the second part of that. He didn't see her,
And the video corroborated that.
Right. And it appears that and it was the video and his statement, he didn't see her. Well, we pushed back, which they weren't expecting. They weren't expecting to get grilled in our backyard. We pushed back, and the answers we got about that video don't line up with what we've been seeing. And of course, they're keeping it as a matter before the court, and I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm absolutely fine with the shocking, as they are shocking, the scenes in the videos. I want it all out, and I want the world to understand what happened.
Thanks, Mark. I have a follow-up question. Maybe Jane will be able to answer it. Has there been, as a journalist, has there been instances where the police have tried to keep evidence of a violent tragedy and not release it? And what do you suggest should be done to get access to it, to pressure the police to release the footage?
Well,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jane.
No, I was going to throw it to you as a question, because yes, there have been cases where, like, dash cam footage and body cam footage of police officers in a disputed incident where, let's say, a civilian dies. People want to see, family members want to see what the dash cam and the police cam footage shows. And my question is, you may have touched on this, but what about a civil case where you could get that through discovery? And where does that stand? Because obviously discovery entitles you to get evidence that the other side has, and vice versa. Would there be a way to get the footage that way?
Yes, Jane, you're correct. The trouble is they've put up this fence, and they won't release to our personal injury lawyer. They won't release anything other than the odd police report, because it's a matter before the court for them. So until we're done with them, we're not going to give you, we've requested it, we're not giving you the evidence. So we have to wait. And in waiting, as I alluded to earlier, explained there are no courtrooms available for highway traffic accidents. So we could be talking about this again this time next year, still unresolved, still waiting for that evidence to get dropped in our lap so we can proceed with a civil case, which would lead to discovery and bring out all the evidence.
One final follow-up, is there any way to challenge this legally through appeals? I mean, if this becomes a constitutional issue in a way that it seems like could be allegedly, purportedly, collusion to prevent evidence from coming out, and that could be orchestrated, could that be something that you could pursue to a higher court?
Yes, we, not necessarily higher, but certainly we can expose the evidence to another court, something called a private prosecution that we were trying to pursue. When you bring evidence separately in front of another justice and an opinion, and you could change this charge. It costs money to get there. When you're suing civilly for damages, there's a contingency on that. So your law firm will represent at no cost, typically, until there's a settlement for damages. There'll be a fee applied to it, and you can pay your lawyers with that. Not with private prosecution, which is what we are pursuing. There are costs to that. There is no contingency fund. There aren't any insurance companies that are going to, pay out for liability to cover those costs. So we're incurring those costs right now to push back and to get this, just to get the evidence out. And in around here, I hate to say it, we have a lot of friends. I have more friends now than I ever had in my life after this happened. I can tell you, this animal rights community is strong, and their support is heartfelt, overwhelming, fantastic. But we also have our own network of friendships we've developed over the years. And from an insider close to the family, he used to be in the Crown Attorney's office. His opinion was, public pressure matters. It may not matter to the police department. They've got a blue line that they stand on and they don't care. They've got a union. But the Crown Attorney's office doesn't like public. They don't like bad press.
And maybe I can jump in to say, initially regarding the footage, I was absolutely concerned about, preserving Regan's beautiful memory. And the fact that her body was crushed in two was just abhorrent. It was just absolutely awful. But then a lot of people would say to me, well, what about, Black Lives Matter, something that Regan supported? And for example, George Floyd, if the video of his awful, awful killing hadn't have become public, then, it's almost like it didn't happen. So I think, having Regan's memory, and I'm pretty sure it's something that Regan would have agreed to, just to further her case and to further animal rights and just to, have people make that connection.
That's right, Jenny. Making that connection is imperative. Regan stood, as you know, for human rights and animal rights alike. And where you can see that in her core is that 34 seconds that was caught at Marineland years ago. And it's brilliant. It's just brilliant, Regan. She hits on human rights, women's rights, and animal rights, and then wraps up with family when her dad walks into the shot. You can't produce that kind of moment. And that came from her heart. And that, when you are speaking, you ask me about construction, I'll bore you to tears and I'll talk all day. You ask Regan about civil rights, animal rights, women's rights, she'll go all day and you will not be bored at all. She, when you understand what you're about to speak about something, if it's a topic you can go on. And she did. She hit all the points. And that's just it. She would want us to be here for all of that, for women's rights, for Black Lives Matter. She was a suffragette.
Exactly.
And she's standing up for injustice of any kind. So the Bill 156 is the thin edge of the wedge to shutting Canadians down. And we have to get that out to other people. We can talk about animal rights all day, but as Justin alluded to really early, those conversations online are back and forth with animal rights people, vegans and truckers, and you need to get the conversation further, then spread it wide. You tell the people aren't there yet that this affects them and their families. It affects their rights to protest in this country. Your civil rights are being violated. They'll open their ears, they'll listen. And it doesn't matter what side they're on, get their support. They'll get your message eventually, but bring them into the fold.
Animal rights is a social justice movement. I think it's really important to realize that, because not only do we campaign for animals, we campaign for the disadvantaged folk having to work in slaughterhouses, for example. We campaign against deforestation that is caused by animals being fed, like monoculture diets. So get that in mind, that animal rights is a social justice movement. And then maybe media would take that to heart and publish more.
And I'd like to jump in and just say, with slaughterhouses becoming COVID-19 hotspots, again, it shows how, yes, animals are exploited and killed, and people now, these slaughterhouses are becoming slaughterhouses for people, not just in the United States, but also in Canada and around the world. And so now there is mainstream media reporting on it because humans are getting sick, because humans are dying. And that is a portal through which people can start even thinking about slaughterhouses, which they do their best not to think about. In fact, the mainstream media refers to the slaughterhouses as meat packing facilities because they can't bring themselves to use the word slaughter. And I just really would love to get a little bit more from Jordan on this. The fact that you did essentially an animal rights documentary, but it was through the prism of a beautiful, incredible woman being killed, that can be the portal through which people can look at this entire issue where they would have otherwise ignored it, and you might not have even been able to do the story.
No, it's true. I mean, having the human component is huge, and it really does draw everyone in and allows us to tell a mainstream story that people will actually watch. And then if you have someone like Regan, who's just so compelling and so, beautiful on so many levels, it just makes it even that much more compelling. And I just want to say one more thing about the aftermath footage. Obviously we wanted to make sure we had everyone's blessing, but we also thought about it over and over again and thought from Regan's point of view, if we were her, what would we want? And we thought it was important. And I will only say that now this only blurred it because of their own reasons. They didn't want to get flagged on Facebook to have the sensitivity sticker where you have to click on it to watch. Otherwise, they would have shown it. And we, we'll talk with the family again, but we do plan on putting out our own version, which is basically the same version, but not with the Now This branding that does show it. Because I think if Now This had not blurred it and it didn't get flagged for sensitivity, it would have had double the amount of views. And that was the goal, is for this to be seen as widely as possible. And I think it's important. If it was me, I'd want it done. I'd want it shown. So that's, the goal always was to have as many people as possible to see this, and having the human story, having the political story, having the animal story all melded into one. This is one of the most important issues of our time, and this story is what better way to tell it. So
thanks, Jordan.
On that, sorry to drone on about that, but it goes back to Regan's philosophy and where she sourced it. Peter Singer's book, Animal Liberation. This also kind of goes back to another previous question, the one from Trevor, Bill, about like fighting ag-gag law. Animal justice is a logical conclusion drawn from all other social justice movements. So if you believe in, treating humans equally, if you believe in, not looking at people differently based on, race, all these things going all the way down the LGBT acceptance, everything from A to Z, the natural result is, well, all the other creatures on this planet are entitled to kind of the same respect that we demand for each other and our fellow human beings. So in respect to that, it's almost like in Ontario, the animal rights movement has now shifted gears back into a human rights movement, right? Because the human rights have now been set back. So you're not able to campaign for the animal rights. Now you are in a position where you are now arguing a human rights problem. And then, so the way you fight Bill 156 and 27 in Alberta is to focus on the trials and the cases and things of this nature. And then in the other places is to then reference that and say, look, it's been struck down here, it's been struck down there, and there's these arguments going on in these places about the current law. That's how you fight for animal justice right now, because that's what the stakes are, is that your rights are being taken away.
Thanks, Josh. I have this one question that I feel is related. And before you answer this, I would appreciate if you could also give like some explanation of what coroner's inquest is. So this question is on YouTube from the 40-year-old vegan, and they're asking, I understand there was a request for an inquest. Are there any examples of a government allowing inquests?
So a coroner's inquest is just a review specifically of the incident itself. It takes the coroner's report and goes more in depth. It allows the public to sit down and have a conversation with the coroner and the government regarding the incident and how to make recommendations in order to prevent such an incident from happening again. The cheeky response we were actually given by an official, I think it was a police officer, was that, well, we don't think a coroner's inquest would be in the best interest because they'll simply say, you know, the only recommendation to make is don't step in front of a truck, which I thought was pretty profoundly disgusting for someone to say, considering the circumstances that we now understand that, you know, it was a live crosswalk and he sped into the intersection. Yeah, so the coroner's inquest was kind of put on a back burner only because there wasn't a coroner's report to request an inquest regarding. And any petition for coroner's inquest that I know of has been either met with no response or a response where, you know, at this time, you know, COVID related, more than likely, is that we're just not doing it at this time, or we won't do it at this time. A reason to do an inquest and an example of an inquest. I can't think of a specific example of a coroner's inquest, but if the coroner's inquest were, say, successful, and at least in regard to say that there needs to be some kind of recommendation or agreement made between the two parties involved, the activists and the meat industry, right, to protect people from this, to prevent this from happening again. That would kind of open the door and give us a relevant point to step off of and say, maybe there's a need for a public inquest. And what a public inquest, an example of that would have been Walkerton, that did a situation, an overarching situation of perhaps negligence or nepotism or issues within the government structure caused this incident to happen. And I would say, in my opinion, yes, that they passed Bill 156 due to lobbying and in the interest of the meat industry. And there's certainly a higher responsibility held by the politicians who passed this bill. And the actual action of Regan being killed is a result of them passing this bill and not really paying attention to the implications of the bill that they put through their legislature.
Thanks, Josh. Josh. Yes, Mark.
How much time do we have?
We'll just take one last question, and I think yeah.
You've got one. I was just going to hit on one very briefly.
Yes, please.
Cornelia Keeler, she's asking, so she was hit by a truck. Why didn't this guy just stop? Maybe this question is kind of naive. It's not a naive question. It's the question. That's not naive at all.
Yeah.
You could almost say from the mouths of babes, I don't know how old you are, but that question is it. Why didn't he stop? Because he chose not to stop. He chose to hit his accelerator and enter that facility at an accelerated rate of speed, higher than the posted 15 kilometers an hour on the gate. That's the safe limit for any vehicle entering that facility to keep employees safe. And he chose not to. He chose not to act carefully. He had Regan in his sights. He had people, pedestrians. Police call them activists. They're pedestrians. They are civilians. They are Canadians exercising their right to speak. And they were there. Now, whether he hit Regan or not, if he saw her anywhere near the entrance, should have proceeded cautiously, carefully. He's a paid professional, held to a higher standard than you and me. And he chose to hit the gas and not brake just before he hit Regan. And that is evident. His statement that I did not see her doesn't wash for many reasons, but the most blatant reason that stands is that he hit the brakes. You don't hit the brakes if you didn't see something. You just keep going. He would have left Regan in his mind had he been moving and not applied his brakes. Didn't see her going. And the security guards told me to stop. That doesn't wash. Because as we've talked about the violent images, you know, can we take seeing them? Yeah, because it's the evidence. Regan's blood, that blood trail that's there, that's Regan. There's only one way that happened. He saw her hit the brakes, her under his front wheel, and pushed her and ground her into the asphalt. And then he rolled off of her at the last minute as the security guards were waving at him, my God, you hit somebody. And he rolled forward, and then you see this clip as Lori walked around. He took her because he hit his brakes. He hit his brakes because he saw her. And he hit his brakes. I feel he was driving at such a rate, playing chicken. He didn't know she was in the game. And he crossed that threshold. He's a professional. He knows his truck very well. And he knew that he could accelerate to an intimidating rate of speed within seconds. Try and scare that person. That person didn't move out of the way fast enough. And he crossed a threshold, I feel, where he realized, I better give her a little bit of time here. She hasn't moved quickly enough. And he slammed on the brakes and it was too late. She didn't get out of the way fast enough. She got caught under that wheel and shoved to her death. He hit the brakes because he saw her. Something isn't right. The evidence shows it's not right, and we're gonna expose it.
Yeah, it's the contention of the police that he didn't apply his brakes until the security guard stopped him, and based on the visual, it appears that way. Like my dad laid it out there. It's certainly possible that there was that maybe he didn't hit his brakes until someone waved him down, which would more play to intent. But as my dad says, as what we see in the video is something akin to hitting something, slamming your brakes, and dragging it along with your vehicle.
Exactly. And if you're driving a vehicle, you see something, and you hit your brakes, this is the result. Claims if police are taking his statement, I didn't see her, then why? You tell me, how did she get caught under a locked wheel, a wheel that was not rotating when it hit her? Regan is a skid mark. All right there. He hit the brakes, he hit Regan, and that was it. Don't say you didn't see her. Line up. So we need these videos out there. We need these mini documentaries. We need all of this to put the pressure on the Crown Attorney's office, who I can almost guarantee hasn't looked at the entire file yet. They may not even have watched the video. It's only in the police department's hands, and if they've got piles of cases ahead of them, they're not going to look at this until 2 days before a hearing. So it's my assumption that the only people who have seen that security camera imaging are Spearman's group, the owner of the slaughterhouse, police department who have that video, and the defense attorney. And that's it. I don't think the Crown Attorney's office has even watched it yet.
They actually stated they looked at the screenshots in order with the explanations provided by the investigating officer. The entire case is based on the perspective and opinion of a sole source who's had it peer reviewed by members of the same police force, which are inherently biased against these activists and have demonstrated that bias through their actions and statements since the incident itself. Specifically, the police chief remarking that there was no way to protect people at that corner until the bill was put in place, yet they did not choose to charge anyone under the act. They charged people with various other offenses to dissuade them from doing what they were doing. So obviously there was a means of protecting people before the day Regan was killed.
Yes, Joshua and I can debate this back and forth and speak to it all day long, but maybe we should give others to get in, because we seem to be going at this very passionately.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark, for going into details of what happened that day. Before we wrap up, I would like to ask our guest panel, do you have any final comments about the documentary, about this tragedy, and what we can do to finally get her justice?
I mean, I'll just quickly say there's a lot of people who helped make this film. You know, we went through, I have an associate producer, Jamie Kurtzer. We talked to hundreds of activists, people from different groups. The new wave activism is there as well in Canada. I mean, lots of people doing lots of great work, and we appreciate everyone helping us make this film. So thank you to the family. Thank you to all the interviewees, and just thank you to everyone. And we hope as many people as possible watch it.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. Let's do vegan for Regan. If people get on Twitter, if you don't have a Twitter account, tweet out, go vegan for Regan with the hashtag, and start 2021 off right with Veganuary, or ask people to take challenge22.com. I think let's spread the vegan message. And for people to get active, the other hashtags that we created after Regan's death, get active for Regan, justice for Regan, save pigs for Regan. So start spreading the word. Ask people to watch the documentary. Ask people to get active. Tell your friends, try vegan for Regan.
I would just say this terrible tragedy, my heart goes out to the family and everyone who knew and loved Regan. It is a sign, though, that our movement is accelerating. So is Bill 156. It may seem like a defeat, but it's actually a sign that they are on the defensive and that they're panicked and they're trying to throw things in the path of evolution, and it's not going to work. So I would say this is the time to double down. We do have the momentum. I really want to applaud now this and Jordan Ehrlich for doing an incredible job on this documentary, doing the work that mainstream media should be doing, in the sense that this should be 2020 and Dateline and all of these other big shows should be covering this. And unfortunately, advertiser-based media still is very beholden to the meat, dairy, and pharmaceutical industry, which are all aligned together. So it's very important for relatively independent journalists to be doing this work, because they're telling the story that isn't being told, while mainstream journalists abrogate their responsibility and kowtow to not just the dominant carnist belief system, but to specific industries that advertise on their networks. So hats off to now this and Jordan, and to all the activists watching. Double down, share this documentary. Go to vigils. When you go to vigils, go live, show the images, because once people see them, they can't get them out of their heads ever.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Josh?
I wanted to say thank you to Jordan for the documentary. It was really precisely what's needed in this kind of modern era we find ourselves in. Journalism is kind of there's a financial interest driving information and how it gets out, and we appreciate that your effort to bridge that issue in Regan's story, and you did a spectacular job, and everyone that worked on it, I just want to thank them first and foremost. I think another thing too is I think what they're protesting at the corner is live transport. Like, if you want to boil it down, not just slaughter, but live transport of these animals. And it's the most visceral demonstration of abhorrent cruelty against, other species on our planet that we coexist with. And I think that even those that, even non-vegetarians and or even like meat eaters, but vegans and vegetarians can all get behind this idea that needs to change, and it needs to change very soon, because it is creating more problems than just the inherent problem that it exists. So I would hope that you try to bridge the gap between yourself and even people that may not pursue the same lifestyle as yourself, and try to at least enlighten them to what happened and what is going on at these places, because it's completely wrong and it needs to stop. And I want to thank, and I think that to challenge Bill 156 is to hopefully get Regan's story out there and make sure this doesn't remain a permanent addition to Ontario's legislature.
Thank you so much, Josh. Mark, any final comments?
Sure. And try to be brief, but I do want to thank everybody who contributed to Jordan's piece, and especially you, Jordan. It was well crafted, well done, and you hit all the marks. And it's wonderful to have that kind of support out there. We've got to reach a lot of people to make a change, and this is going to help a lot. Regan would be right behind it if she could be here. And thanks to Jane for everything you do. I've been catching up with some of your efforts online. It's brilliant. And Jenny, I haven't met anyone as passionate about this since Regan. I watch you from afar. I watch you in person, and you are just that. You're a warrior. And it's fantastic to see. We've got those kind of people. And Varun, he's not always quiet, but he's there. You can count on him. He's just at the events. He's documenting stuff. He's putting together pieces. He's bringing people together. And yeah, when it comes to these events and vigils, you can count on seeing Jenny and Varun there. It's just a given. Look for them. There they are. I don't know where you find the time. And it's a sacrifice, I know. And we get motorists and truckers yelling at us, get a job. Well, as the security guard at Fearman's told me in June, he said, point to one of those activists, Mark, and I'll tell you what their job is. I'll tell you their name, what they do for fun. This isn't it. They all have jobs. He got to know them very well. So when someone says, get a job, get a life, yeah, we all have lives. We're making sacrifices to make this happen and get this point out there. It is a sacrifice, and I appreciate all of you for sacrificing that, especially on Regan's behalf. The movement that has just swelled. It's there, but it's swelled since Regan's death. It's certainly a tribute to what she stood for 43 years. So thank you to everybody. And one final mention to the 6 friends of hers that witnessed this happening. I can empathize with their pain, but I'm so sorry that happened in front of them. They know they can speak to me anytime openly. They can reach out, and they too, they are out there. They're still fighting the fight on Regan's behalf.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much again, Jordan, Jane, Jenny, Mark, and Josh for joining our panel today, for providing your valuable insight. And thank you to everyone who has joined us live on our social media platform to ask questions as well as listen and learn Regan's story. If you would like to stay updated, please visit our website, thesavemovement.org, where you can sign up to our email list as well as join your local ASM chapter. Thanks once again.